I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast where we walk listeners through the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our very favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out every week.
This week we're going to be looking at the X books that came out on January 21st, 2015. Let's get started. First up, we have All New X-Men number 35. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, drawn by Mahmoud Asrar, and colored by Marty Garcia. And it's a really good issue, continuing a really good run. I love Asrar on this book, and I think he speaks to the strength of comics as a medium. When you've got a writer and an artist who are both really good fits for the subject matter, you end up with something that's much, much better than the sum of the parts, which is what's going on here.
Yeah, so in this storyline, we still have the all-new team from the 60s, or whenever. Time is weird in Marvel.
The vague past.
The vague past. Minus Cyclops, of course. Stuck in the Ultimate Universe, where they were inadvertently shunted by a new mutant, hanging out with that universe's equivalent of the X-Men, which is quite different.
Now, neither of us is all that familiar with the current state of the Ultimate Universe. I read about 80 issues of Ultimate X-Men and then kind of lost interest and never picked it back up. So it's distinctly possible that we're missing things that we would catch if we were more familiar with that stuff. But as is, I'm finding it really pretty easy to follow, and I'm finding it really, really interesting to have, the young time-unstuck X-Men interacting with a very, very different alternate version of themselves. It's not the future versions of them, but something very, very much other.
Yeah, specifically seeing Jean and Jean interact, both having had very different life paths, is wonderful. Bendis is just nailing the dialogue with these characters, and I really love it.
Man, how good would it be if like all the Jean Grey's adventure books spun out of this? Like just all the alternate universe Jean Grey's reality hopping and having adventures?
This would be glorious. Marvel, make it happen.
That would be so cool. I feel like that would do a lot to redeem Jean Grey as a lead character, too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a terrific book. I feel like at this point, Bendis is tailoring the line to create situations where he can write multiple Icemans being snarky at each other. And I feel really good about that. So yeah, good book. Don't jump in here, middle of a big story. But if you're willing to go back and do a little bit of legwork, great, great title to follow right now.
Next up, we have Wolverines number 3, written by Charles Soule with art by Wando. And this, in my opinion, is one of the things that can go wrong when you have a weekly book.
You know what else can go wrong when you have a weekly book? When you're promised something really awesome, like, say, a heist involving Mr. Sinister, and then you don't get it.
That is indeed unfortunate, but what I was referring to was the fact that this book is decompressed to the point of almost nothing happening. Now, what does happen is we meet this character named Phantom L, who's going to presumably play into the book, who I guess is related to Phantom X, but is not Phantom X, even though he's split into 3
Or just has a
parts.
Similar name. It's not really specified.
It's not clear.
Get a lot of background. She's cool.
Yeah, we see her, doing this sort of master thief job, stealing the Punisher's shirt, which is hilarious and awesome, and I love it. And then, one of the big monsters that showed up in the preludes to this series shows up and kills a friend of hers. And, that's it. When I finished it, I checked to make sure that Marvel Digital was working correctly because I thought that the issue could not be over yet. But no, sure enough, 22 pages. It's stretched out, and I really did not feel like I got enough bang for my buck here.
Yeah, this is fill. This is not substance, and it's really not what the series has been. There are ways to do a weekly book and coordinate it and make it work, and this isn't one of them.
Yeah, if this were, if the content of this issue were the first third of another issue, I would love it unabashedly. As it is, I want more.
Next up, we have the final issue of X Factor, number 20. It's written by Peter David, drawn by Carmine Domenico and Will Sliney, and colored by Lee Luffridge. And look, this is the end of the series, and it is going out not with a bang, but with a whimper. This is a series that has had a huge amount of trouble finding its legs, and there are some cool plot hooks dropped in this issue. I just really wish that David had dropped them in maybe about 15 issues before, because I think that could have salvaged the series in a way that this really can't.
Yeah, what we find out is what the deal with Harrison Snow, the CEO of the company X Factor is working for, is. And it's interesting and unexpected, but here at the end of the series, it really just feels like it comes out of nowhere. It's
also tied really closely to Spider-Man 2099, which is a really weird move.
Yeah, that's a book that Peter David has also been writing. But speaking as somebody who's been following All New X Factor but has not been following Spider-Man 2099, I don't know, I feel like it maybe would have made a lot more sense if I had been following the other book. And that's unfortunate, especially in the last issue of a series, especially when what this reveal is essentially retroactively the premise of the book.
Yeah, on one hand, I'm going to miss this book. On the other hand, I've already been missing this book for about 17 issues.
And last up, we have Magneto number 14, written by Cullen Bunn, with art by Gabriel Hernandez Walta and colors by Jordie Bellaire. This is a very good issue of a very good comic. This book has really always been about the grayness of Magneto's character, him sort of fighting himself, fighting his past, fighting his demons to decide who he's going to be in the current Marvel Universe after what he's been through. And this issue addresses his past a lot more than most others have. Now, we've seen his past as a Holocaust survivor and a concentration camp prisoner addressed. This talks about something that we haven't seen a lot of, but is hugely significant, which is the genocide on Genosha, the island nation he had reestablished as a haven for mutants.
Well, in the time he spent as ruler of Genosha, which again is something that I think gets largely overlooked in continuity, that he was... I mean, he was in a lot of ways the beloved ruler of a small intentional utopia, which is something it's really easy to forget about Magneto.
He was like a less jerky Doctor Doom, and less cool talking Doctor Doom, to be fair. So he's back on Genosha. He's trying to shelter mutants again, and S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up. And for him, the parallels are too much, and we get to see that kind of moral conflict. We get to see what happens when Magneto's conscience, as it were, starts to lose.
I want to talk a little bit about the art and specifically the colors in this issue, because Jordie Bellaire is a terrific colorist, and this issue is a great summation of why. The palettes in the different eras are different, and they're different in a way that it's very, very easy to play as heavy-handed, and it's not here. It's gorgeous, it's evocative, it's really clear, and it really does a tremendous job of supporting not just the tone, but the storytelling and the actual narrative. We talk a lot about colorists on this because they tend to get kind of overlooked in reviews, and this is a book where, Walta is terrific, but this book would not be what it is without Bellaire.
Yeah, a good issue of Magneto, which is to say most of the recent ones, I find leaves me feeling a little uncomfortable and almost nauseous after I'm done reading it. A lot of that's the art, a lot of that's the colors. This is a wonderful character study. This issue's a great example of that, and especially given what happens at the end, I'm very intrigued to see where we go from here.
So, Miles, what's our issue of the week?
Our issue of the week is actually the one we just reviewed, this week's Magneto. What I really like about this issue in particular, and this book in general, is that everybody involved with it creatively seems to be working together to make it exactly what it is and what it's intended to be. There's a very clear focus and purpose to this book in the X-Men line, this sort of noir analysis of one man's psyche dealing with some terrible, terrible things, like what that has made him in the past and what that's going to make him in the future. It's consistent and it's focused, and I really wish the rest of the Marvel Universe would be full of books that knew what they were doing like this one does. Good stuff. Highly recommended. That being said, Rachel, what's our panel of the week?
Well, I think unsurprisingly, on the wake of that review, our panel of the week is also from Magneto. And we've talked before about the way mutant powers are shown in comics and superpowers. It's really easy to do a big, explosive, dramatic scene. It's very hard to do something that has a lot of impact and is still very quiet. Comics are a visual medium. The way those rhythms work matter. So this is our panel of the week, and it's from near the end of the issue. It's Magneto facing off against some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Magneto, again, is a character who's generally been shown very dramatically, and who's been shown using his powers very dramatically, flourishing his cape silhouetted against the moon. And so having him in a moment that quiet and confident and certain, especially in the wake of what it's coming after. Actually, I'm going to put the preceding page up for a moment just so you can see what this is coming after and punctuating. Gives it a ton of impact. The composition is really good. The posture and body language are fantastic. I mean, this is comics doing what comics do best.
404 issues done. We're all set. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week, Miles?
So this week we're heading back to Uncanny X-Men for Chris Claremont's 100th issue, where they celebrate the old Thunderbird dying by beating up the new Thunderbird. A really cool but also very strange and dark crossover with Power Pack and everybody's favorite pink robot, Nimrod.
It's not my favorite pink robot.
Well, I guess as pink robots go, he's kind of up there. There aren't that many.
The podcast, rachelandmiles.com, and everything you see here are brought to you courtesy of our awesome Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much. You are the wind beneath our wings. And thanks to you, starting next week, I will be recapping and reviewing every single episode of X-Men Evolution. You monsters. This is what you have wrought.
That's a lot of episodes.
It's 52 episodes. It's a year's worth.
That's a lot of shirts tucked into boxers.
It really is.
So, again, thank you guys for watching. We love you all. We will see you next week.
You have way too much hair to be Brian Michael Bendis.